HFY Vanguard, where arrogance meets humanity and pride learns to kneel. This is the story of one proud alien and the human who changed her world. The legend begins now. The lower districts of Cardon City never slept. Neon glyphs burned through the permanent twilight, flickering over steam vents that hissed like tired beasts. Every language in the galaxy screamed for attention, from rusted billboards, pleasure dens, credit lenders, black market cyberware. The air reeked of ozone, spilled fuel, and fried spices from half a dozen alien cuisines. Above it all hung the constant drone of hover traffic and the soft metallic heartbeat of a world that had forgotten silence. Commander Jack Reeves moved through it like a ghost that refused to fade. He didn't fit the scene: too tall, too composed, too human. Most species gave humans a wide berth. Their reputation traveled faster than their ships. Stories said humans were unpredictable, half diplomat, half beast, and always trouble. Jack carried that reputation the way a soldier carries a scar, with a mix of warning and pride. He stopped beneath a sputtering hollow sign reading Grax's repairs and wares. Light pulsed blue across his features, catching the lines of a face carved by discipline and war. Short blonde hair, sharp jaw, eyes like cut ice. He scanned the street, habit not paranoia, and then glanced to the small figure beside him. Mira stood barely chest height to him, wrapped in a thin black cloak that did little to hide her vibrant violet skin. Her eyes, large and iridescent blue, reflected every color the neon threw at them. A pair of lavender-blue, slender tentacle-like appendages, unique to her species, rested along her shoulders, occasionally twitching like living nerves of emotion. Under the cloak, a form-fitting leather suit clung to her with the unapologetic confidence of a woman who'd learned that attention could be used as a weapon. "Wait here," Jack said, voice low and steady. "I need to speak to the merchant." "5 minutes max." Mira nodded. "Fine, but this place smells like something died and was recycled into food." "That's because it probably was," Jack replied, and the corner of his mouth twitched almost a smile. Then he disappeared through the door, leaving her alone in the streetlight's pulsing glow. Mira exhaled, trying to blend into the wall behind her. Her heart's beat a fraction too fast. She'd met the human only hours ago, an accidental collision at the spaceport that turned into an alliance born of necessity. Now she was in the most dangerous sector of Cardon, with him hunting information about her missing sister. Trust a human, she thought, bitterness curling inside her. Her people whispered about humans the way children whispered about monsters, admiring their courage but fearing their rage. And yet Jack had helped her without asking for payment or advantage. That made him either honorable or stupid. She hadn't decided which. A shadow fell over her. "Well, well," a gravelly voice rumbled. "What's a delicate little thing like you doing in streets this hungry?" She looked up, way up into the scaled face of a Draken mercenary. Green scales glimmered like armor plates under the lights. His yellow eyes were thin and hungry. He smiled, showing fangs that had chewed through more than meat. "My business is my own," Mira said coolly. Her hand inched toward the shock blade hidden in her belt. The Dracon laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Pretty and brave. That'll get you killed around here." He leaned closer, his breath hot and chemical. "Maybe you need a protector. For a price." Mira's loose stiffened. Her mind ran calculations: angle, reach, probability of surviving a direct strike. She could stab the throat, but the crowd around them, dozens of species pretending not to see, would never interfere. She'd bleed out alone on the pavement while the market kept selling. The Draken lifted a clawed hand toward her face. "Touch me and you lose that hand," she warned. He grinned wider. "Let's test that. Is there a problem?" The new voice cut through the noise like a knife. Calm, cold, human. Jack was back, standing behind the Draken. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't have to. The way he stood, shoulders loose, gaze steady, spoke of a predator who'd already calculated the kill. The Dracon straightened, towering, but suddenly less sure. "No problem," he grunted. "Just talking." "Good," Jack said. "Then you won't mind leaving." It wasn't a suggestion. For a moment, the Dracon hesitated, his tail twitching. Then he caught the look in Jack's eyes, that flat, infinitely patient look that predators shared right before they struck. He backed away, muttering something about "damn humans." The crowd resumed breathing. Mira exhaled slowly, forcing her Lou to relax. You stood up for me, she said, half surprised. Jack's expression softened a fraction. Could I have done anything else? A pause, then a smirk. Besides, I need you alive. You're my guide. I could have handled him, she insisted. I don't doubt that, he said. But why waste the energy? He glanced toward the shop. Come on, I got what we needed. Let's move before his friends grow brains. They walked side by side through the glow-slick alleys. Jack's pace was measured, his eyes scanning corners and rooftops without appearing to. Mira found herself matching his rhythm, breathing easier in his shadow, even as she resented the feeling. You didn't answer my question, she said finally. Why help me at all? You don't even know me. Jack shrugged. Maybe I don't like bullies. That's not enough. No, he agreed, but it's a start. They turned onto a narrow bridge overlooking the industrial chasm splitting the district. Below them, factories belched fire into the night. Above, 3 moons glowed like cold spectators. Mira watched him for a long moment. In the harsh light, he looked like something carved from steel and resolve. And yet, when he caught her staring, there was humor in his eyes, a spark of life she hadn't seen in months of running. Humans have a reputation, she said softly. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Half mad. Jack smiled sideways. Most of that's true, but it keeps people honest. Which part is true? He glanced down at her. You'll have to stick around to find out. The broker's data chip burned a cold weight in Jack's pocket as they moved through the crowd. He didn't like this planet. Too many eyes, too many ears, and too many ways for things to go wrong. But if the information on that chip was right, it was the first real lead in months, and it belonged to Mira's sister. He glanced at the Nexian beside him. Her expression focused yet haunted. There was something in her eyes he recognized, too well lost, that had no place to go. You really think she's alive? He asked. I don't think Mira answered. I know. Jack nodded. He'd heard that tone before from soldiers who'd walked through hell with nothing but belief to carry them. They reached a crossroad where the street split into a maze of alleys. Jack paused, checking the scanner in his wrist gauntlet. A faint ping flared on the holo map. There's a place called the Rusty Airlock, he said. Our contact wants to meet there. And before you ask, yeah, it's as sketchy as it sounds. Mira snorted. Perfect. I was worried it might be safe. For a second, they shared a brief laugh that didn't belong in a place like this. It felt wrong and good at the same time. Then the crowd shifted again. Jack caught movement in the corner of his eye, someone following, keeping distance, but not subtle enough. He didn't react visibly. He just touched the small of Mira's back and murmured, left turn, now. They ducked into a narrow side corridor, lit only by a red maintenance sign. Footsteps echoed behind them. Friends of yours? Jack asked. Mira shook her head. I told no one we were coming. Then they're mine, Jack said grimly. He spun as 2 figures emerged from the smog-masked mercs, plasma pistols already drawn. The first barely had time to speak before Jack's shot took him through the shoulder, a single efficient movement like he'd rehearsed it 100 times. The second fired, the bolt grazed Mira's arm, leaving a trail of smoke and pain. She bit back a cry and threw her blade, embedding it in the attacker's neck. The merc dropped, gurgling. Jack was already beside her. You okay? It hurts. Good. Means you're alive. He tore a strip from his jacket and wrapped it around the burn, his touch steady but gentle. Her skin was warm, almost velvet. He pretended not to notice the way her breathing changed under his hands. Thank you, she whispered. He met her eyes. Don't thank me yet. We just told half the district we're here. They moved again, faster this time, into the tunnels leading toward the rusty airlock. Behind them, sirens started to wail and the sky turned the color of blood. For a moment, Jack looked back at the chaos spreading behind them. He'd been in 100 cities like this, seen 1,000 faces lost to fear or greed. But the small violet figure running beside him, head-high eyes burning with resolve, made him feel something he hadn't in years. Purpose. Maybe this mission will be different, he thought. Maybe this time it's not just about orders. And as they vanished into the smog, the neon behind them flickered one last time, casting their silhouettes onto the wall, a human and a Nexian running together through a city that had forgotten how to care. The rusty airlock didn't have a door so much as a mouth, a corroded archway breathing heat and smoke into the alley. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil, cheap alcohol, and pheromones from species that didn't believe in personal space. The lights flickered amber through the haze, illuminating clusters of patrons whispering around hollow tables. Every shadow had an ear, every laugh hit a blade. Jack and Mira slipped through the crowd, the human towering above the mix of species, like a lone soldier among predators. Conversations paused when he passed, eyes following with a mix of curiosity and quiet fear. Humans didn't often walk into places like this and walk back out. They reached the bar, a patchwork of dented alloy and spilled drinks. The barkeep, a three-eyed hask, squinted. "What'll it be, stranger?" "Information," Jack said, sliding a cred chip across the counter. "And maybe something that burns." The hask scanned the chip and whistled. "That'll buy you both." He jerked his chin toward a side corridor. "Booth 3, he's waiting." Jack nodded once and turned to Mira. "Stay close." "Wasn't planning to wander," she murmured. Booth 3 was half hidden behind a drooping curtain that smelled faintly of metal and rot. Inside sat the broker, a thin, gray-skinned being with four eyes that blinked in alternating pairs. A Vexian. Their kind thrived on secrets the way others thrived on air. "You're late," the broker rasped. His voice was like sandpaper on glass. "We're alive," Jack replied evenly. "That'll have to do." The broker's eyes shifted to Mira, a Nexian female. "Rare these days. I assume the job involves her." "She's not the job," Jack said, sliding into the seat across from him. "She's the client." The Vexian's lips twitched, curious pairing human muscle and Nexian desperation. Mira's Lou twitched irritably. "You have what we came for or not?" The broker chuckled softly, then produced a small data chip that glowed faintly crimson. "Coordinates. Your sister was last seen at Nexus Station, but be warned, it's syndicate territory, not the place for sentimental reunions." Jack leaned forward. "Who's running it now?" The Dracon called Krell. "Ruthless, rich, owns half the trafficking routes from here to the Vaden Rim." Mira's voice was cold. "And the other half, owned by those who fear him." The broker pushed the chip across the table. "You'll need this. Encryption passcode Crimson Dawn. Remember it." Jack reached for the chip and froze. A reflection flickered on the metallic wall beside the booth. A silhouette moving closer through the haze, too quiet, too deliberate. He reacted instantly. His hand shot out, grabbing Mira by the shoulder and pulling her down just as a plasma bolt ripped through the curtains, searing the air where her head had been. Chaos erupted. Patrons screamed, diving for cover as a second shot hit the wall, sending sparks across the booth. "Ambush," Jack shouted, drawing his sidearm. The broker vanished under the table like smoke. Mira rolled aside, pulling a short blade from her boot. Two masked figures burst through the curtain, mercenaries in dark armor, weapons drawn. Jack moved first. His pistol barked twice, the sound sharp against the background roar. The first merc dropped, chest smoking. The second fired, forcing Jack to duck. Mira slid beneath the table, her blade slicing through the attacker's leg armor with precision that made Jack blink. The merc roared, stumbling, and Jack finished it with a clean headshot. Then came the third. From the corner of the room, another figure fired the bolt, catching Mira across the shoulder. She hissed, stumbling back, the wound glowing faintly. Jack didn't think. He vaulted the table, crossed the space in 2 strides, and slammed the shooter against the wall. The merc's gun clattered away as Jack's forearm pressed against his throat. "Who sent you?" Jack growled. The merc spat blood. "Everyone's got eyes on humans now. Price doubled for yours." Jack's pistol silenced him. The silence afterward was deafening. Smoke curled from the broken lamps, the stench of burned ozone coating everything. Mira leaned against the booth, her hand pressed to her shoulder. Purple blood trickled down her arm. "Stay still," Jack said, kneeling beside her. "Don't," she began, but he was already tearing a strip from his sleeve, wrapping it around the wound with practiced precision. "You're lucky," he said. "Plasma only grazed you. Any deeper and you'd be missing half a shoulder." Mira winced. "Remind me to thank the shooter for his mercy." Jack's lips twitched. "Or I can track him down and return the favor." She stared at him, at the small, grim smile that didn't reach his eyes. There was a kind of calm fury about him, something coiled behind every word. "You've killed before," she said softly. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "So have you." Her Lou stilled. She didn't deny it. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, breathing in sync amid the smoke. Then the broker's voice floated from somewhere under the overturned table. If you two are done flirting, might I suggest leaving? The syndicate's pets will smell the blood soon. Jack grabbed the chip rose and extended a hand to Mira. Let's move. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was warm, strong. When he pulled her to her feet, their faces were inches apart. For one dizzying second, she forgot the pain in her arm. Then he released her. You can owe me later. They slipped out through the back alleys. The rusty airlock was already filling with enforcers as they vanished into the mist. Rain began to fall, or something like it. On Cardan, the rain smelled of metal and tasted faintly of acid. Steam rose from the ground as they ran. Jack led them through a maze of corridors until they reached an abandoned maglift station. He swept the room with his scanner, found it empty, and motioned for her to sit. Mira sank onto a rusted bench, wincing as she moved her injured arm. Jack crouched in front of her again, pulling a small vial from his pack. What's that? She asked. Pain neutralizer, human formula, it'll sting. It's fine, I'm used to pain. Not this kind. He pressed the applicator gently against the wound. She gasped, the chemical burning like fire before fading to a cool numbness. Jack didn't look away. His face was close enough that she could see the tiny scar running along his jaw, a story untold. You're good at this, she murmured. Years of fieldwork, he said, and bad luck. She smiled faintly. Which one am I? He paused, still deciding. The silence stretched between them, charged and uncertain. Outside, the rain hissed like static. Finally, she said, You're not what I expected from a human. And what did you expect? A monster. Or a hero. Maybe both. Jack looked away, his expression shadowed. Heroes don't last long out here. Then what are you? Someone who's tired of seeing good people sold like parts. The words hung in the air, heavier than the smoke outside. Mira studied him. In the flickering light of the maglift, he didn't look like a soldier anymore. He looked like a man carrying too many ghosts. Without thinking, she reached up and touched his arm. Thank you, she said quietly. Jack glanced at her hand, then at her face. Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. They stayed there for a few minutes, long enough for the adrenaline to fade and exhaustion to creep in. Jack finally stood and checked his scanner again. We move at dawn. I'll find transport off-world. Nexus Station isn't going to welcome us with open arms. Do you ever sleep? Mira asked. Not when I can avoid it. She gave a tired laugh. That's very human of you. Jack turned his silhouette, framed by the faint neon leaking through the cracked window. Maybe. Or maybe it's just survival. He paused, glancing back at her. Get some rest. You'll need it. Mira lay down on the bench, curling her loo protectively around her shoulders. For the first time in years, she let someone else keep watch. She drifted off to the sound of distant sirens and the soft rhythm of his footsteps pacing nearby, a human sentinel in a city that devoured the weak. And somewhere in the haze of sleep, a strange warmth bloomed in her chest. It wasn't safety, not yet, but it was something she'd forgotten how to feel. Hope. Nexus Station hung in orbit like a rusted crown, once a gleaming trade hub, now a fortress wrapped in shadows. Its hull shimmered with mismatched repairs and pirate modifications, each scar telling a story of greed and survival. The approach lanes were choked with traffic, freighters, smugglers, and the occasional warship that pretended to be civilian. The place reeked of power bought with blood. Jack Reeves watched from the cockpit of the small smuggler vessel they'd hired, arms folded. If hell had a skyline, he said, this would be it. Beside him, Mira adjusted the datapad containing the decrypted coordinates from the broker. Her last transmission came from the upper sector residential decks level 12. Jack frowned. That's syndicate territory. Civilians don't live up there unless they're owned. Mira's low twitched nervously. Then she's a prisoner. Or something worse, he said quietly. The pilot, a wiry insectoid who called himself Kriv, chittered from the controls. Docking clearance granted. Keep your heads down and don't make eye contact with security. Dracon don't like surprises. Neither do humans, Jack muttered. As the ship latched onto the docking ring with a heavy thud, Mira inhaled sharply. If she's alive, she'll recognize me. I'll bring her out. Jack turned toward her. We'll bring her out. Together. For a heartbeat, she held his gaze, the human steadiness in it, the quiet promise. She nodded once. The airlock hissed open to reveal polished corridors, a stark contrast to Cardan's filth. Everything gleamed, floors, walls, even the guard's armor. But the shine didn't hide the rot. Cameras tracked every movement, and the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and fear. Two Dracon guards stood near the customs gate, their scaled faces unreadable behind visors. Jack presented their forged credentials, a traitor couple representing Turellian exports. The guard scanned the chip's nostrils, flaring slightly. Purpose of visit, he hissed. Commerce, Jack replied smoothly. Rare chemicals. Negotiations with your syndicate's quartermaster. The guard eyed him, then Mira. His gaze lingered too long. Enjoy your stay. Try not to get eaten. They passed through without further delay. Mira exhaled once they turned a corner. He could smell you. He smelled something, Jack said. He tapped the small device behind his ear. The pheromone masker's holding for now. But let's not test its limits. They moved deeper into the station, navigating corridors filled with traders, slaves, and soldiers. Mira's eyes darted everywhere, searching faces that weren't hers. Then near a massive observation window, she froze. Jack, she whispered. He followed her gaze and saw her. A Nexian woman stood across the atrium, framed by the light of the nebula beyond the glass. She was taller than Mira, dressed in flowing silks that shimmered with embedded circuitry. Jewels sparkled along her lobe, marking her as someone of influence. But the resemblance was unmistakable. Mira breathed. Her sister turned and her eyes widened in shock. For a second, time stopped between them. Then her expression changed, smoothing into something unreadable. Not here, she mouthed. Then aloud for anyone nearby. My, what an unexpected visit. Come guests of mine, we have much to discuss. Two Dracon guards at her side hesitated. Waved them off. I'll handle this. Jack kept his hand near his weapon as they followed her through a private corridor into a suite that looked more palace than prison. The door sealed behind them with a whisper. The silence that followed was razor-edged. Then Mira moved first, crossing the room and pulling her sister into a fierce embrace. I thought you were dead. Zir stiffened, then slowly relaxed, her voice breaking. I thought the same of you. Jack looked away, giving them the moment. But the soldier in him noted details, the hidden surveillance nodes, the faint hum of an energy shield, the faint shimmer of something poisonous in the air. When the sisters finally separated, he said quietly, we need to talk. Fast. Zara's composure snapped back like armor sliding into place. You shouldn't have come. The syndicate watches everything. You work for them, Jack said. It wasn't a question. Her jaw tightened. I survive among them. There's a difference. She moved to a console, deactivating several hidden recorders. The holograms flickered out, leaving the room cloaked in low light. Now we can speak freely. Mira's voice trembled. They said you were taken sold. I was, Zir said bitterly. But I learned quickly that slaves who stay useful stay alive. I had skills they wanted. My biochemical research became their weapon. Jack folded his arms. Weapons like what? She turned, meeting his gaze. Compounds that control emotion. Substances that erase memory. And now she hesitated, a biochemical shroud that hides an entire species' scent signature, designed to infiltrate human colonies undetected. Jack's stomach turned cold. They planned to strike Earth settlements. Within months, Zur said, their leader Krell wants dominance over the outer colonies. Human labor, human tech, all bound to the syndicate. He calls it balance. I call it empire. Mira stepped forward, then help us stop him. Zur looked at her, eyes filled with pain. Do you think I haven't tried every day I send information out through hidden channels? But Krell's grip is strong. He trusts me because I've made him believe I belong to him. Belong, Jack repeated, disgust curling in his voice. Zur's smile was sharp and humorless. His consort, his prize scientist, his property. Mira's Lou quivered with anger. We can take you away from this. I can't leave, Zur said flatly. Not yet. Krell's planning a gathering tonight. Every syndicate leader will be there, including Drex. Jack's expression hardened. The Dracon from Cardan. The same. He's risen high since your little encounter. Krell's favorite enforcer now. That's convenient, Jack said darkly. Means I get a second chance. Zur turned toward a hidden panel in the wall, opening a compartment filled with sleek devices and forged credentials. You won't get near the gathering as yourselves, but you can as servants. Krell's mansion always needs more hands. I can get you in. Why not come with us? Mira pleaded. Because if I vanish, Krell will suspect something long before the poison takes effect. Jack blinked. Poison. Zur smiled faintly. A slow one, untraceable. I've been feeding it to him for months. Tonight, the final dose. There was silence, thick and dangerous. Jack finally said, "You are walking a fine line between martyr and murderer." "I'm walking the only line left," she replied. "When Krell dies, chaos will follow. You can use that to escape and to steal their data." Mira's voice softened. "Sister, is there anything left of the person you were?" For the first time, Zer's facade cracked. "Maybe. When I look at you." Jack looked between them, calculating. "We'll need disguises, clearance codes, and a way to mask my DNA." Zer handed him a thin silver pendant etched with alien script. "Experimental tech. It rewrites your pheromone output for 6 hours. You'll smell like a Torellian hybrid. No one will question it unless they scan your genome." Jack slipped it on. "That'll do." Zer's eyes flicked to him. "You're different from the humans I've met." "That's the idea," he said. She gave a small, tired laugh. "Maybe my sister finally found someone as stubborn as she is." Mira flushed. "Zer." Later, Zer interrupted, her voice regaining its steel. "The service entrance is on level 4, section Gamma. You'll report to a Phylaxian named Trill. He's been paid to expect you. Once inside, gather everything you can. Fleet data trade manifest troop deployments. Krell's empire runs on information. Take that and you break him twice." Jack nodded, and after that, Zer's gaze went distant. "After that, the galaxy burns clean." They left the suite under the cover of artificial dusk. The station's lights dimmed in cycles to mimic planetary night, but the shadows here never truly rested. As they walked, Mira's thoughts swirled like storm clouds. Seeing her sister alive should have brought joy. Instead, it felt like carrying a blade by the edge, relief and pain inseparable. Jack's voice broke through her thoughts. "You still trust her?" "I have to." "You don't have to," he said gently. "You want to." Mira met his gaze. "She's all I have left, Jack." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then we make this work." When they reached the lift that would take them to the lower decks, Mira touched his arm. "Jack, thank you for not walking away." He smiled faintly. "I don't walk away from lost causes. They tend to turn into legends." The doors closed, sealing them in. Somewhere far above, in the luxury of her suite, Zer watched the surveillance feed flicker back on. She stared at her own reflection in the black glass scientist's slave sister weapon and whispered, "Forgive me, Mira. There's more than one poison tonight." The service corridors beneath Krell's estate were narrow and cold, lit only by thin blue lines along the walls. The air smelled of metal polish and perfume mist, an artificial attempt to disguise the scent of power. Every few meters, surveillance drones hovered in place, their single lenses tracking the passing of servants like indifferent gods. Jack walked among them wearing a plain gray uniform, its stiff fabric hiding the weight of the pistol at his hip. The pendant Zer had given him pulsed faintly against his neck, masking his human scent, rewriting his pheromones into something alien enough to fool the station's scanners. Beside him, Mira wore the same servant's attire, though nothing could disguise the natural grace of her movement. Her liu twitched restlessly, the faint glow at their tips betraying nerves she tried to suppress. "You're sure this disguise will hold?" she whispered. Jack's mouth curved faintly. "You sound like you're losing faith." "I'm not losing faith. I'm calculating odds. There's a difference." "That's why I like you," he said, voice low. "You think like me." She looked away, but a small smile ghosted across her lips. They reached the end of the corridor where a Phylaxian supervisor, Trill, according to Zer, waited. The insectoid's forearms moved in perfect rhythm as he inspected each servant that approached. His multifaceted eyes gleamed like cut amber. "You're late," he clicked, handing them 2 trays stacked with crystal flasks of shimmering liquid. "Table rotation C9. Do not speak to the guests. Do not spill anything. And above all, do not die. Replacements are expensive," charming Jack murmured. Trill's antennae twitched. "What was that?" Jack's expression was unreadable. "I said understood." Satisfied, Trill waved them onward. They emerged into the grand hall, and the noise hit like a wave. Music rippled through the air, played on alien instruments that sang in impossible frequencies. The hall stretched wider than any cathedral, with transparent panels in the floor and ceiling, offering dizzying views of the planet's orbit below. Hundreds of guests mingled under chandeliers of floating light, their bodies gleaming with scales, fur, or polished carapace. Every one of them was dangerous. Mira's breath caught. Stars. Look at them all. Jack didn't look. His attention swept the room in quick surgical motions, noting exits, guard positions, and the shimmer of concealed turrets above. Keep your eyes down. Pretend you belong here. She nodded and followed him into the throng, balancing her tray like she'd done it all her life. The first few minutes passed uneventfully, just the endless dance of servitude. But beneath the routine, every sense was sharpened to a knife's edge. At the far end of the hall, a fanfare sounded. The crowd turned as the massive doors opened, revealing Krell the Draken Overlord himself. He was enormous even by his species standards, his obsidian scales flecked with gold. Two bodyguards flanked him, each nearly as large, their armor pulsing with internal light. Krell's eyes burned molten yellow as he surveyed his guests with the casual arrogance of a god among insects. Beside him walked Zur. Mira nearly dropped her tray. Her sister looked otherworldly, clothed in silver silk that caught the light like water, her violet skin glowing under the chandeliers. Her lu were adorned with jeweled clips that sparkled at every movement. But beneath the beauty was a hollowness in her eyes, a fatigue no finery could hide. She looks, Mira whispered. Jack finished the sentence for her, like she's playing a part. Krell reached the central dais and raised a clawed hand. The music dimmed. My friends, he rumbled, voice amplified by hidden speakers. Tonight we celebrate expansion, the dawn of a new era for the Syndicate, the era where no species hides behind their fleets or alliances, the era where commerce and dominance become one. A chorus of approval rippled through the hall. Jack leaned close to Mira. Translation, he's about to announce the next phase of their trafficking network. She nodded, then we need proof. Already working on it. He tapped the thin comm band hidden beneath his sleeve. The disguised communicator Zur had provided was already syncing to the hall's data streams. Every whisper, every projected chart, all of it recorded. They circulated among the tables, appearing to serve drinks, while Jack's hidden scanner absorbed encrypted transmissions. Mira's heart pounded, but she kept her movement steady. Then she saw him. Drex. He stood near the dais, dressed in ceremonial armor, with crimson markings along his snout, the same reptilian brute who had cornered her on Cardon. His golden eyes roamed lazily over the crowd until they stopped on her. A slow smile crept across his face. Jack, she whispered, we have a problem. He followed her gaze and felt his pulse tighten. Stay calm, he said. He can't know it's you. But Drex was already moving. He intercepted her near the eastern balcony, blocking her path with a smooth, predatory grace. You're new, he said in a low voice that carried beneath the music. I'd remember a face like yours. Mira kept her head bowed. Transferred from the outer ring, sir. Drex reached for a glass, deliberately brushing his claws against her hand. Outer ring, you smell familiar. Her liu trembled, a reflex of fear she couldn't suppress. Jack was halfway across the room. He couldn't risk running, couldn't draw attention, but his every muscle screamed for violence. Drex leaned closer. Tell me, little one, have we met before? Pardon the interruption, sir. Jack's voice cut in like a blade. Calm, authoritative, and perfectly controlled. He appeared beside me, a tray, balanced effortlessly. This server is needed in the east section. Drex turned, eyes narrowing. And you are? Trill's new hire, Jack said. I manage logistics. The reptilian inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring. You smell unusual. Jack smiled thinly. Mixed heritage. My mother was Tyrellian. Drex studied him for a long, dangerous moment. Then without warning, he laughed, a dry, rasping sound. Half-breeds. Always amusing. He waved them off. Go before I decide to test how mixed you really are. Jack's hand brushed Mira's arm as they retreated, a silent reassurance. When they reached the safety of a service alcove, she exhaled shakily. He knew, I could see it. He suspected, Jack corrected. That's different. But we're on borrowed time. The rest of the banquet passed in a blur of tension. Krell toasted alliances, unveiled holograms of expansion, routes, glowing red lines that cut across human colonies like open wounds. Jack recorded everything, his jaw tightening with each revelation. When the speeches ended, the music returned louder, wilder. Guests mingled again, laughing over cruelty disguised as commerce. Jack positioned himself near a holographic map display, uploading the last data fragment to his hidden recorder. Across the hall, Mira slipped between tables, collecting whispered fragments of conversation, weapon shipments, payment routes, names of buyers. Then she caught Zer's eyes from across the crowd. Her sister's expression was composed, but her hand brushed the side of her glass, the signal they had agreed upon. The poison's been administered. The first domino had fallen. An hour later, Krell began to falter. At first, no one noticed a stumble, a slurred word. But then the massive Dracon gripped the edge of his podium, his scales glistening with sudden sweat. The room hushed. "Is something wrong, Lord Krell?" a guest asked, half amused. Krell tried to reply, but his mouth worked soundlessly. His golden eyes rolled back. Then the giant crashed to the floor with a thunderous crack, scattering crystal shards and panic alike. Screams erupted. Guards drew weapons. "Showtime," Jack muttered. He grabbed Mira's hand and pulled her into the chaos. The crowd surged toward exits while alarms wailed through the hall. Zer moved quickly through the confusion, intercepting them near the side passage. "It's starting," she said. "We have minutes before lockdown. Did you get the data?" Jack held up his wrist display, streams of encrypted code scrolling across it. Everything. Fleet routes, trafficking chains, weapon schematics. Enough to cripple the syndicate if it reaches the Alliance. "Then go," Zer urged. "I'll create a diversion." "What about you?" Mira demanded. Zer's smile was sharp and sad. "Someone needs to make sure the poison doesn't get traced. Besides, I'm not finished yet." "Zer, go." Jack didn't hesitate. He pulled Mira through the service corridors as the sound of shouting grew behind them. Security lockdown protocols were kicking in, blast doors sealing, drones activating. They ran past servants, screaming, alarms blaring. Red light bathed everything, turning metal into blood. At a junction, Jack stopped, activating a small jammer. The device buzzed, disrupting local scanners. "We'll head for the docking bay," he said. "What about Zer?" She knew the risk, he said, voice tight. "Now move." As they sprinted through the narrowing corridors, Mira couldn't stop thinking about her sister's face, that calm resolve, the same one she'd seen before every storm back on Nexia. "Jack," she gasped, "do you think she'll survive this?" He didn't answer. The truth was burning behind his silence. A loud clang echoed behind them. Armored footsteps, the hiss of plasma rifles charging. Syndicate enforcers. Jack spun, firing 2 quick shots down the hall. One guard fell, the others ducked behind cover. "Keep moving," he shouted. They burst into a maintenance bay overlooking the docks. Through the viewport, the Syndicate's ships loomed like beasts in slumber. Jack keyed the control panel, overriding the lock with stolen access codes. The door slid open, revealing a small courier vessel inside. "Get in," he ordered. Mira hesitated, glancing back down the corridor. "Jack, someone's coming." He turned and froze. Drex stood in the doorway, smoke curling from his armor, eyes burning with hatred. Leaving so soon, he hissed, "I thought we could continue our little conversation." Jack raised his weapon. "Maybe next lifetime." Drex smiled, all teeth and malice. "Oh, I insist." The first shot tore through the control panel, showering sparks. The door slammed shut behind him. Jack cursed. "Go. I'll hold him." No, Mira grabbed his arm. "You're not doing this alone again." Their eyes met, human blue and alien violet, both burning the same defiance. Then together they faced the monster. The blast door sealed with a hiss that cut off the alarms. For a moment there was only silence, then Drex's low growl filled the bay, vibrating through the deck plates. "You really thought you could steal from the Syndicate and walk away?" The Dracon snarled. The lights flickered crimson, catching the metallic sheen of his scales. "You smell of fear, human." Jack leveled his pistol. "You're half right." He fired twice. The first bolt grazed Drex's shoulder. The second hit the wall as the reptilian rolled aside with surprising speed. The return shot blew a chunk out of the floor where Jack had been a second before. "Move," he barked at Mira. She dove for cover behind a cargo crate as another plasma bolt sizzled overhead. The entire room lit up with the strobing fury of weapons fire. Drex stalked forward, his armor hissing as micro servos adjusted for combat. "Krell's dead. The Syndicate is mine now, and when I deliver your bodies, the galaxy will remember my name." Jack ducked behind the control console, reloading. "You talk too much." Confidence, human, the kind you lose right before you die. Jack threw a concussion charge across the floor. It detonated with a thunderous whump, hurling Drex back into the bulkhead. Smoke poured through the bay. "Come on!" Jack grabbed Mira's hand and sprinted toward the ship. They made it halfway before the bulkhead split open. Drex emerged roaring armor, scorched but unbroken. He hurled a cargo crate the size of a ground car. It smashed into the deck, missing them by inches. "Go," Jack shouted. Mira spun, firing the guard's dropped rifle. The bolts hammered into Drex's chest plate, staggering him. "Not without you." Jack vaulted onto the ship's ramp, grabbed a nearby plasma hose and yanked it free. A geyser of blue fire spewed across the floor. He twisted the valve, turning the hose into a flamethrower. Drex hissed, shielding his face, the heat warping the air. Jack's voice was pure steel. "You wanted a human, Drex? Here's one." He swept the fire in an arc, forcing the Draken back. The smell of burning armor filled the air. Mira jumped aboard, slamming the hatch. Jack followed, dropping the hose and sealing the door. "Engines," he shouted. She raced to the pilot's seat, hands flying over the unfamiliar controls. "This thing's pre-coded to Zare's authorization. Give me a second." "We don't have a second." Jack slammed the emergency ignition. The ship lurched, engines whining. Behind them, Drex's claws tore at the outer hull, leaving deep gouges. Then the thrusters kicked in. The vessel blasted forward, slamming both of them into their seats. Through the viewport, Nexus Station spun away, a glittering hive dissolving into chaos. Docking clamps shattered, debris scattering like sparks. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. "We're clear of the bay. Plot a course for deep orbit." Mira's voice was tight. "What about Zare?" He hesitated. She knew what she was doing. "No one knows what they're doing when they stay behind." Mira said, her tone sharp with grief. "You of all people should understand that." He didn't answer. Back on the station, alarms howled. In her private lab, Zur watched through security feeds as Drex's forces tore through corridors. The poison was doing its work. Krell's body convulsed in the Grand Hall, his lieutenants already turning on each other like sharks. Zur keyed a command into her console. "You wanted an Empire, Krell. Here's your kingdom of ashes." She transmitted one final packet of data, the Syndicate's entire operation logs, into Jack's encrypted relay. A warning flashed across her screen, unauthorized transfer detected. "Too late," she whispered. "Let them come." The door burst open. Draken guards poured in, weapons raised. "Where is the human one?" demanded. Zir smiled, a strange peace settling over her. "Gone, and you'll never find him." She pressed a final key. Energy surged through the conduits around the lab as the self-destruct protocols she'd built in secret came alive. The last thing she saw was the glow of the reactor core rising to meet her. On the fleeing vessel, a shock wave rippled through space. The light from Nexus Station flared white, then dimmed. Mira turned, eyes wide. Jack, the station. He'd already seen it. The monitors showed the massive structure breaking apart, pieces spinning into the void. "She did it," he said quietly. Mira's voice trembled. She stayed behind to make sure it burned. Jack put a hand on her shoulder. She chose her ending. "Let's make sure it meant something." Before either could say more, the console blared a warning, multiple pursuit vessels detected. "Damn it," Jack muttered. "Drex's fleet. He must have escaped the blast." "Can we outrun them?" He glanced at the readings. Not for long. Mira's hands flew over the controls. "Then maybe we don't outrun them. Maybe we hide." Jack looked at her, really looked, and saw the spark of strategy in her eyes. "You have an idea. There's a debris field from the station's outer ring. If we dive into it, their sensors will lose lock." "Risky," he said. "Everything's risky. You taught me that." He grinned despite himself. Fair point. The ship plunged into the expanding wreckage. Shattered hulls spun like dying planets, trails of flame painting the darkness. Plasma bolts chased them, splashing harmlessly against tumbling debris. "Keep us low," Jack said, bracing against the cockpit frame. "They'll fire blind once we vanish from radar." The ship shuddered violently. Sparks showered from the ceiling. "That sounded expensive," Mira muttered. "Relax, it's just the aft shields. That's the part that keeps us alive. Then don't get hit again." He took over manual controls, hands steady even as the ship bucked. One of the pursuing crafts slammed into a piece of wreckage, blooming into fire. Another veered too close, its hull sheared by debris. "Two down," Jack said. "How many left?" Mira checked the scanner. 4? No, 5. And one of them's big. A shadow loomed across the stars, Drex's flagship, its red-marked hull catching the glow of the wreckage. Mira's voice was barely a whisper. He's not giving up. No, Jack said. He's angry. The flagship's cannons ignited streaks of molten light ripping through the debris field. One bolt grazed their ship, tearing open a side panel. Pressure drop in Section 3, Mira shouted. Jack slammed the emergency seal. The cabin hissed as the breach closed. That's it. We're done running. He turned the ship hard, diving beneath the remains of a destroyed cruiser. Zur said this thing had defense turrets. Let's see if she was right. He flicked a switch. 2 automated guns unfolded from the hull. Target lock, Mira confirmed. Fire. Twin streams of energy erupted from their vessel, slamming into the nearest pursuer. The smaller ship exploded, spinning out of control. The others scattered. Jack's jaw tightened. That'll get their attention. It already has, Mira said grimly. Flagship's charging its main cannon. The screens flooded red. A massive energy spike built at the heart of Drex's ship. Jack's mind raced. If he fires, we're dust. We need cover something dense. Mira pointed ahead. They're reactor fragments from the station. They're still radiating. Jack angled the ship toward the glowing wreck. Hold on to something. The world became motion. The vessel rolled, Dove scraped through a cloud of shrapnel. Energy beams sliced past them, one so close it left molten scars on their hull. Then suddenly they were through, hidden in the magnetic storm of the reactor field. All systems flickered, instruments going wild. Lost sensors, Mira said. We're blind. Good, Jack replied. So is he. For a long minute, there was only the hum of overworked engines. The adrenaline crash hit them both at once. Mira leaned back, trembling. We made it. Barely. She looked out the viewport, the swirling debris glowing faintly like dying embers. Zur would have loved to see this. The syndicate tearing itself apart. Jack's gaze softened. Then let's make sure it stays that way. He keyed the comms, transmitting the data Zur had sent moments before her death. Alliance Command, this is Operative Reeves. Transmission packet attached, syndicate network collapse. Confirm receipt. Static. Then faintly a human voice. Copy that, Reeves. Data incoming. Stand by for verification. Mira smiled through the exhaustion. She did it. We all did. Jack nodded, watching the distant fire fade into silence. No, he said quietly. She did more. She gave us a fighting chance. He turned to her. Now we finish what she started. The ship drifted in the void engines, cooling, surrounded by the glowing ghosts of a dying empire. And for the first time in a long time, Jack Reeves let himself believe the fight wasn't just survival anymore. It was purpose. Space was quiet the way a blade is quiet, beautiful, sharp, and waiting to kill. The wreckage of Nexus Station floated behind them, scattering light like frozen lightning. Jack Reeves stood at the cockpit window of the stolen courier ship, jaw tight, as he watched Drex's flagship emerge from the debris field. The ship was monstrous, a fortress wrapped in engines, its crimson hull glowing with reactor heat. He's still coming, Mira said. Her hands danced over the controls, rerouting power from damaged systems. I don't understand. The field should have shredded his sensors. Jack's voice was calm, focused. He doesn't need sensors. He's hunting us the way predators always have, by instinct. The console blared a warning. Incoming transmission detected. Jack hit accept. Drex's scaled face filled the screen, his grin wide and cruel. You can't hide from me, human. The syndicate may have fallen, but I'll rebuild it from your bones. Jack leaned close to the camera. Funny, I was about to say the same. He cut the feed. Mira shot him a glance. You do realize taunting the giant murder lizard isn't helping our odds. It helps morale. Yours maybe. He smiled faintly, eyes locked on the growing shadow ahead. Get ready. We're going to need every bit of luck we've got left. The calm before fire. For a brief moment, the void between ships held its breath. Mira rerouted power to the forward shields. Her movements precise, efficient, almost beautiful. Jack watched her out of the corner of his eye, the way her loo shifted color when she concentrated faint gold blooming under her skin like fire behind glass. How long until the Alliance responds, she asked. They'll come, he said, if Zer's packet made it through. And if it didn't, then it's just us. The air was thick with things unsaid, guilt, grief, fear, but neither of them voiced it. There wasn't time for weakness, only action. Drex's fleet is spreading formation, Mira reported. 6 interceptors, 2 corvettes, 1 main battleship. They're forming a kill box. Good, Jack said. She frowned. Good, because they think we're running. He slid into the gunner's seat, fingers flying across manual targeting controls. We're not. The opening salvo, the void exploded. Drex's interceptors darted forward, plasma trails streaking through space. Jack fired the courier's rail cannons, a weapon meant for cargo defense, not war. The rounds ripped through one fighter, shattered another. Direct hits, Mira shouted. Jack's teeth flashed. That's two, keep counting. Energy beams sliced past them, lighting the cockpit in brilliant flashes. The courier shuddered, alarm screaming. They're locking on. Jack twisted the ship hard to port, inertia slamming them both against their harnesses. Brace. A missile grazed their hull, sending the vessel spinning. Sparks cascaded across the control panels. Shields at 40%, Mira yelled. Jack fought the controls, stabilizing their trajectory. Keep us low. Stay under their line of fire. If we can get behind the flagship. Behind the what? He grinned, teeth bared. Behind it, trust me. Trusting you nearly got me killed on Cardin. And saved your life twice since. Fine, she hissed, but if we die, I'm haunting you. They dove straight into the chaos. The courier skimmed the surface of a shattered cruiser debris, ricocheting off its hull. Jack's targeting display flickered, locking onto the Corvette's engines. Firing. Two rail slugs shot forward, tearing through armor plating. The Corvette erupted in flame. Mira whooped, adrenaline cutting through fear. That's four. Keep count, Jack said, his tone half grim, half proud. Humans like their numbers neat. But the moment of triumph vanished as Drex's flagship turned its main guns toward them. Energy surge. He's charging the primary cannon. Jack's mind raced. What's our distance? 300 kilometers and closing fast. Then we're not dodging this one. He flipped the ship, diving beneath the wreckage field. We'll use the debris as cover. Those guns are built for open space. A massive beam lanced out from the flagship, vaporizing a kilometer-wide swath of wreckage. The blast missed them by seconds, the shockwave hurling the courier end over end. Stabilizers offline, Mira cried. Jack's knuckles whitened on the controls. Hold on. The ship spun wildly, alarms, shrieking stars blurring into streaks of light. He slammed a manual override, cutting the engines entirely. They drifted. Silence returned, jarring, absolute. Mira gasped for breath. Are we dead? Jack looked around the dim cabin. Not yet. He studied the radar. The flagship was scanning, searching for any trace of them. But the courier's heat signature was buried among the wreckage. Mira turned to him, still trembling. You killed the engines. Let them think we're debris. That's your plan. Play dead. He smiled. It's worked before. The ambush. They floated in the void, motionless, while Drex's fleet combed the wreckage. Mira glanced at Jack. If they get any closer, their sensors will pick us up. Exactly, he said. She blinked. You want them close. Jack tapped the manual trigger for the courier's last payload. Remember the reactor fragments we passed through? Yes. They're still unstable. Magnetic field interference will blind their targeting systems if we overload it. You're planning to detonate the field from inside it. That's suicide. He shrugged. Only if it doesn't work. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mira reached out, gripping his arm. You're insane. Probably. He turned his hand and laced his fingers through hers. But if it works, the explosion will cripple the flagship long enough for the Alliance to lock on our coordinates. She stared at him, the human who had walked through every inferno without flinching, and something in her chest broke open. If we survive this, Jack Reeves, I'm going to... He cut her off with a grin. Hold that thought until we're not vapor. Jack reactivated the engines just enough to nudge the courier out of the wreckage field's edge. Immediately, the flagship's sensors pinged. They see us, Mira said. Good. The battleship's cannons lit up. Dozens of plasma bolts ripped through the void. Jack weaved between them, his movements precise and reckless all at once. Closer, he muttered. Come on, you bastard. Follow us. The flagship advanced, cutting through debris like a leviathan through waves. Jack, Mira said urgently, we're out of space. Almost there. He slammed the throttle. The courier dove straight into the heart of the reactor fragments, glowing clouds of radiation swirling around them. Behind, Drex's ship followed. Magnetic storm at maximum, Mira shouted. Our systems are burning out. Perfect. He keyed in the manual detonation code. The screen flashed, overload sequence armed. Confirm. Jack looked at her. You ready? Mira's voice was steady. Do it. He hit the switch. Inferno. The explosion tore across the void like the birth of a new star. Energy waves rippled through space, shredding debris and tearing through the flagship's hull. Alarms screamed in his quarters as fire cascaded from deck to deck. Inside the courier, the shock wave hit like a hammer. The cockpit went dark panels, shattering gravity failing. Jack was thrown against the bulkhead. Mira's cry echoed through the smoke. Reeve, he forced his eyes open, coughing lungs, burning. I'm here. She struggled toward him through zero gravity, her movements graceful even in chaos. Engines offline, life support failing. Backup system, he rasped, yanking open an access panel. We just need a spark. She placed her hands beside his, her smaller fingers steady against his bloodstained ones. Together they rewired the core sparks, leaping like tiny stars. The ship shuddered, then power surged back to life. Outside the viewport, the flagship was a broken silhouette drifting in a flame. Mira whispered, "You did it." Jack corrected her softly. "We did." Then the comm crackled. "Alliance fleet to unidentified vessel signal verified. Hold position. You're surrounded." Mira's eyes widened. They came. Jack leaned back exhausted. "Told you." The arrival of legend. Moments later, the black of space split open as the Alliance battleship Intrepid dropped out of warp. Its hull gleamed silver-blue weapons arrays, glowing with restrained fury. Escort frigates followed in perfect formation, their lights scattering the darkness. From their bridge, Admiral Lorne's voice boomed over comms. "This is the Alliance. Stand down Syndicate forces. You are surrounded. Surrender immediately or be vaporized." Drex's battered flagship tried to respond a final act of defiance, but its engines sputtered, then died. Inside the ruined command deck, Drex staggered, smoke curling from his armor. "This isn't over," he hissed. Jack's voice echoed through the comms, calm and lethal. "It is for you." The Alliance's cannons fired. Light swallowed the last of Drex's empire. Aftermath. Silence reclaimed the stars. The Intrepid's docking bay opened, drawing the courier ship inside with tractor beams. Medical crews rushed forward as soon as the ramp lowered. Jack stumbled out, one arm around Mira's shoulders. His uniform was burned, his face streaked with blood and soot. She was pale but alive, eyes shimmering in the hangar light. An officer saluted. "Commander Reeves, Admiral Lorne requests your report." Jack nodded weakly. "Later. First get her treated." Mira tried to protest. "I can walk." "Not the point," he said, smiling faintly. "Humans are stubborn. Don't start learning bad habits." She laughed despite herself. "Too late for that." As medics led her away, she looked back. "You didn't just save me, Jack. You saved all of us." He watched her go, the corners of his mouth softening. "Maybe," he murmured, "but she saved me first." Outside the hangar window, the wreckage of Drex's fleet burned in the void, bright, beautiful, and fading fast. The stars beyond shimmered like witnesses to something larger than war. For the first time in a long time, Jack Reeves felt the weight of what humans were truly capable of. Not conquest, not cruelty, but defiance, the kind that changed the galaxy one impossible act at a time. The med bay of the Intrepid hummed softly with the rhythm of life support systems. After the storm of battle, the sterile calm felt almost unreal. Jack Reeves sat on the edge of the medical cot, a fresh patch of synth skin sealing the wound on his arm. Through the transparent wall, he could see the blackness of space and the scattered wreckage still drifting like ghosts outside. A familiar voice broke the silence. "You look worse than the station you blew up." He turned. Mira stood in the doorway, wrapped in an Alliance-issued uniform that didn't quite fit her. The navy blue fabric clung awkwardly against her slender frame, but the color contrasted beautifully with her violet skin. Jack smiled. "You clean up better than I do." She stepped closer, eyes flicking over the healing cuts along his jaw. "You shouldn't have been in the cockpit during re-entry. Would have been rude to die before the debrief. That's your excuse for everything rude." He chuckled, then winced when it pulled at the bruises along his ribs. "You sound like Command." She raised a brow. "If I sounded like Command, you'd already be in another war zone." He leaned back on his palms, studying her. "You're different." Her liu shifted color, pale gold tinged with pink. "We both are." The weight of victory. The door slid open behind her. Commander Voss entered, silver hair pulled back in a tight braid. The stern lines of her face softened when she saw them. "Operative Reeves, Lieutenant Mira," she paused, correcting herself, "or whatever title you prefer. You've earned more than one." Jack straightened instinctively. "Report's complete, ma'am. Syndicate network neutralized. Drex's forces scattered. Voss nodded. We've confirmed it. Your data gave us the exact fleet coordinates we needed. Drex is in custody. Mira's gaze sharpened. Alive. For now, Voss replied. He'll face tribunal under Alliance jurisdiction. But given the evidence, his chances are non-existent. Jack's jaw tightened. He should have died with the rest. Voss's eyes flicked to him. He almost did. You stopped short. Didn't want him to die easy, Jack said quietly. The commander studied him for a long moment. Your restraint is noted. Then she turned to Mira. We've reviewed your sister's files. Her work dismantling the syndicate's chemical operations saved hundreds of lives. She'll be recognized posthumously with full Alliance honors. Mira's voice trembled. She hated medals. Voss nodded gently. Then we'll honor her the way she'd prefer by destroying what's left of the monster she fought. Something broke behind Mira's calm. Her low, dimmed curling close to her shoulders like wilted petals. Jack reached out, resting his hand on hers. She didn't die for nothing, he said softly. No, Mira whispered. She died because someone had to make the choice, and she trusted us to live with it. Voss cleared her throat, her voice more formal again. Reeves, the Council has authorized formation of a new anti-trafficking task force. You're to command it. Jack blinked. That was fast. You made sure there's no syndicate left to argue. You'll need a team. His gaze slid to Mira. I've got one. Voss smiled faintly, the closest she came to approval. Then rest while you can. You'll depart for the border sectors in 48 hours. When the door closed behind her, silence filled the room again. The confession. Mira sank into the chair opposite him, her posture weary but graceful. You really meant that, she said after a long moment, about me joining the task force. I meant every word, Jack replied. You're smarter than anyone I've worked with, and you've already proven you're braver. Her blue eyes met his. And if I say yes, what happens after? He hesitated. We rebuild. We hunt the remnants. We make sure no one else ends up in chains. She tilted her head. That's not what I meant. Jack exhaled slowly. Then say what you mean. She leaned forward. The glow in her eyes softened from fire to starlight. You risked your life for me, for my sister, for people you didn't even know. Humans talk about purpose like it's a mission. But you, she touched his chest lightly above the heart, you live it. He caught her hand gently. You think too highly of me. I think you hide behind modesty because the truth scares you. What truth? That you care, she said simply. The words hung between them, heavier than any battle. Jack's throat worked before he found his voice. Maybe I do. Her lube brushed against his wrist, soft, deliberate. Then stop pretending you don't. He laughed quietly. You're not supposed to be the reckless one. She smiled. I learned from the best. He leaned closer. The hum of the med bay faded, replaced by the faint rhythm of their breathing. Her scent-spiced ozone and something floral lingered in the air. When their lips met, it wasn't desperate. It was the calm after surviving the impossible. The human and the alien, the soldier and the survivor. For the first time, neither was alone. The ghost that remained. Later, when the lights dimmed to night cycle, Jack stood by the viewport again. Stars stretched into infinity, each one a reminder of how small they were and how much they'd already changed. Mira joined him quietly. She wore her hair loose now, silver threads catching the faint blue glow of the ship's lights. Can't sleep, she asked. He shook his head. Too quiet. After everything, silence should feel like peace. It feels like guilt. She stepped beside him. You think Zira would want you to feel that? He didn't answer immediately. She deserved more time. So did we all, Mira said gently. But she gave hers so others could have theirs. That's not tragedy, Jack. That's legacy. He looked at her, really looked, the calm resolve in her eyes, the faint luminescence of her skin. You sound like her sometimes. She was my sister, she said simply. Her voice will always be somewhere in mine. He smiled. Then I'll make sure I keep listening. A new dawn. The next morning, the Intrepid prepared for jump. Fleet engineers swarmed the hangar, repairing ships, rearming cruisers, readying the next offensive against whatever remained of the syndicate. Jack stood at the briefing table reviewing holographic projections of border sectors. Mira entered a data pad under one arm, her stride confident now. Ready, he asked. She nodded. The Alliance assigned us a new vessel, the Vanguard, light cruiser stealth-capable long-range sensors. They said it suits your reputation. He raised a brow. Vanguard, huh? Sounds dramatic. You'll like it. It even smells like engine grease and bad decisions. He laughed. Perfect. She handed him the data pad. I took the liberty of designing our insignia. He glanced at it, a simple emblem, a human hand clasping an alien one framed by a halo of stars. Underneath a single phrase, we don't wait for destiny, we make it. Jack stared at it for a long moment. You made this? It's a start, she said. He looked up. It's a promise. As the fleet shifted into formation, the Vanguard's engines came alive, a low hum that grew into a resonant roar. Jack and Mira stood side by side on the command deck, watching the stars ahead stretch and twist. Where to first, she asked. He grinned. Wherever they think humans don't belong. The ship leapt into faster-than-light travel streaks of light blurring into endless motion. And in that moment, two survivors, one human and one alien, became the beginning of something larger than both. Not just an alliance, not just a mission, a legend.